Hola, mi nombre es Alexander Navas.
Hello, my name is Alexander Navas. I'm a research professor at the University of La Salle. Today we're going to talk a little about sustainability in conventional production models and the alternatives that allow us to design sustainable systems.
Sistemas sostenibles. Cuando hablamos de sostenibilidad,
When we talk about sustainability, there are three elements that are important: environmental aspects, economic aspects, and social aspects.
modelos convencionales básicamente
Basically, conventional production models have been based on green revolution models, which have generated problems in these three aspects.
en Colombia
In Colombia, in livestock terms, we can say that the majority of livestock producers are small producers.
y se menciona
It is mentioned, more or less, there are figures where it is said that around 60% of the producers are poor. It means that the livestock models or the livestock systems are currently failing to basically contribute
esa labor básicamente
to improving the conditional quality of life of producers in many ecosystems in Colombia.
ecosistemas en Colombia. Cuando estamos hablando de ganadería,
When we are talking about livestock, we can basically say that the livestock model is characterized by monocultural pastures and high inputs,
altos insumos básicamente
basically in terms of fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, or specialized milk systems, high contents or balanced commercial supplies, which increases cost. Production
básicamente de balanceados comerciales, lo que incrementa los costos de producción, más aún
even more so in national markets or in the international context where the inputs have strongly increased their economic value.
su valor económico. Necesitamos entonces desarrollar
We then need to develop strategies or technological alternatives
reducir los
that basically allow reducing production costs and improving the profitability of these production systems. When we were talking about these alternatives, we were talking about using other technological models.
otros modelos tecnológicos,
In this case, we could talk about agroecology.
que la agroecología es una ciencia que permite
That agroecology is a science that makes it possible to use natural resources to benefit the efficiency of production systems.
los sistemas de producción. Hablamos básicamente de
We are talking about looking at those interrelationships
entre el suelo,
that occur between the soil, plants, animals, and the environment,
pero de igual forma también beneficios sobre los productores,
but in the same way also benefits for the producers, the local knowledge that the producers have. Basically, the ancestral knowledge, which allows, together with the technicians, the professionals from the different areas of knowledge, designing systems that are in accordance with the environmental conditions,
básicamente del sitio donde está
basically of the site where the livestock is located or the production system. A very important element to also talk about is this conversion of conventional systems is the negative impact generated by the green revolution model in environmental terms. Livestock is blamed on this economic activity for water pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, soil loss, and in general,
la pérdida de suelos y en general
the loss of a strategic ecosystems or functional ecosystems that allow the generation of ecosystem services that they are very important for humanity.
para la humanidad. Entonces lo que se busca
What is sought with the redesign of the systems is basically to conserve natural resources for future generations.
cuando estamos mencionando
When we are mentioning the design of a sustainable system, we have to talk about the pillars of production.
entonces desde la zootecnia
Pillars of production, so from zootechnics, we basically talk about what is the administration or management of a system. We also talk about nutritional aspects, genetic aspects, and health aspects.
cuando estamos entonces diseñando
When we are designing these systems, it is important to talk about the management of the biodiversity resources that we have in these systems,
entonces dependiendo de las condiciones
depending on the climatic conditions and the altitude conditions.
pues en los sistemas ganaderos hay unos recursos
In livestock systems, there are some very important forage resources, and the idea is basically to be able to establish not monoculture systems, but rather polyphytic grasslands, where grass species and leguminous species are basically joined or planted, and where these species are associated with trees or shrubs, organized or planted in different arrangements, which is what we call silvopasture systems.
que es a lo que denominamos los sistemas silvopastoriles. También es muy importante
It is also very important in the selection of herbaceous, arboreal, or shrub species to know the physical chemical conditions of the soil,
ya que estas nos permiten seleccionar
since these allow us to select the best species that will be the basis of our animals' diet.
nuestros animales. El otro elemento que es muy importante,
The other element that is very important when we are talking about this fodder base is to manage forage production,
el forraje. Para eso,
for which there are strategies such as different types of grazing that we could generalize to rotational grazing,
que podríamos generalizarlos en
where forage plants have rest times and recovery times that allow them to be administered over time throughout the year and to be supplied or consumed by animals when these plants have the highest nutritional quality and highest digestibility.
y ser suministradas o consumidas por los animales cuando estas plantas tienen la mayor calidad nutricional y la mayor digestibilidad.
This is what will allow us the genetics that are incorporating in the farms because it can be manifested or it can be expressed, and with this we can get the good returns.
Y con ello pues podemos tener una buena rentabilidad.
Another very important aspect when we're talking about rotational grazing,
Idealmente,
ideally under silver pasture systems as mentioned,
mencionado, es que
is that those short periods of occupation that hopefully will be 1, maximum 2 days,
y esos periodos de descanso que
and those rest periods that are going to be closely related to climatic conditions, and with the growth of the plants, they will allow us to increase the nutrient cycling.
al incrementar ese ciclaje nutriente,
By increasing this nutrient cycle from the concentration of animals in high instantaneous loads,
pues los animales a
the animals through their excrete of urine and feces will favour the enrichment of soils with many of the nutrients that the animal consumes, but does not assimilate,
el animal consume pero que no asimila, y de esta manera
and in this way we are going to nourish the pastures, and each time we are going to have better quality pastures and greater amount of food for the animals.
los animales. Esto lo que nos va a garantizar
What this will guarantee is to increase the load capacity. We can remember that in Colombia, more or less, the load capacity is 0.65 animal units per hectare,
5 unidades animales por hectárea. Recordando que una
remembering that an animal unit is equivalent to 450 kilos of live weight. We are not talking about animals, but about animal unit. The Green Revolution model has given us a low load capacity,
una baja capacidad de carga, además de los problemas
in addition to the problems on the soil, on the water, and in the environment that we have been mentioning. Strategically, in these agroecological systems, in these sustainable systems, what we are doing is improving the soil, improving the pastures, improving the quantity and quality of food so that our animals express that genetic potential.
genético. Entonces es una forma de...
It is a way of maintaining and conserving the soil in the long term.
Los árboles también cumplen.
Trees also fulfill some very important functions.
Los árboles en sistemas ganaderos
Normally we think that trees in livestock systems fulfill the main function, which is to provide fodder. We can remember that trees and shrubs can have more than 20 uses on a livestock farm, not only the forage production but also cycling on nutrients, connectivity, and providing shade.
en muchos de nuestros ecosistemas.
In many of our ecosystems, there are moments of the day when animals have heat stress.
Recordemos que los animales expresan
Let's remember that animals express their genetic potential if they are in a range of ideal thermoneutrality, and in ecosystems, in a large part of our country, the temperature conditions that can occur throughout the day can generate cold stress or heat stress in animals.
este estrés influye
This stress negatively influences consumption and therefore also the genetic expression of our animals. When we use trees that have this function, we can reduce temperatures and allow our animals to,
podemos reducir las temperaturas
if they enter that range of thermoneutrality, take advantage of those forages. When I say take advantage of the forages, I'm referring to having longer consumption times and longer rumination times, which allows our animals to use these nutrients.
y mayores tiempos de rumia, lo que permite que los animales puedan utilizar estos nutrientes.
Other benefits also that forage trees or shrubs have is that they normally have higher nutritional quality than grasses, than pastures,
Que las pasturas. Y esto hace pues,
and this means that we can supplement our animals at low cost, reducing those costs, whether of commercial feed or other supplies. That they are very dependent on the economic conditions that arise at some point or that are developed,
en algún momento
that arise at some point or that are dependent. For example, on the availability of crops that occur at some point in the area where we are working.
trabajando. Manejar entonces,
Managing the systems in an organized manner, and speaking of the rotation
hablando de la rotación y de la calidad de los forrajes,
and the quality of the forage, also allows us the efficiency of the nutrients that the animals are consuming generates
una reducción de los gases,
reduction of greenhouse gases that are product of the neutral
de la fermentación,
that are the product of the natural fermentation of ruminant species.
tener una mayor digestibilidad,
By having greater digestibility, the production of greenhouse gases is reduced, which means that we can change this negative slogan that livestock has.
tiene la ganadería, lo podemos ir.
A large part of this change lies in the fact that we can manage diets with high digestibility, and we can do it from the tropical resources that we have in the different ecosystems, from the pastures and the diversity of tree species.
Diferentes ecosistemas.
The other important aspect is that livestock systems can also help to mitigate climate change,
Un aspecto importante es que los sistemas ganaderos,
not only by reducing the emissions that we have been talking about,
no solamente reduciendo las emisiones,
but also from the fixation of atmospheric carbon that well-managed, rotated pastures do, with periods of adequate rest, eliminated burning, for example, as a management practice that we have in certain parts of the country,
en ciertas partes del país, pero también la utilización de árboles,
but also the use of trees allows carbon to be captured, stored in its structure, and improved nutrient cycles and carbon fixation to the soil.
y esa fijación de carbono al suelo. Espero que el tema
I hope that today's topic has been of interest to you. The idea was to give some generalities on how to gradually improve livestock production systems. For more information regarding any doubts that you may have, we are waiting for you at the Universidad La Salle at the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences,
tener, pues los esperamos en la Universidad La Salle, en la Facultad
where we are ready to resolve all your concerns and be able to contribute to improve your production systems.
contribuir para que mejoren sus sistemas de producción.